everyone, and welcome. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here for this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and, frankly, most consequential challenges in the entire commercial real estate world. We're talking about managing tenant sustainability impacts. To just kind of put this into perspective for a second, commercial buildings account for a massive chunk of global energy use, emissions, and waste generation. We're literally talking about millions of tons of material and gigawatts of power. But here's the catch. Fixing this isn't just an engineering problem. Actually, it's mostly a behavioral and financial one. Today, we're going to explore exactly how property owners can overcome these hurdles and align their financial interests with the everyday actions of their tenants. It's like a giant puzzle, but when you solve it, the benefits for the environment, for indoor environmental quality, and for the financial bottom line are absolutely massive.
Okay, let's dive into this by looking at a classic economic dilemma. If a landlord shells out the capital to buy and install an incredibly expensive solar panel array, but the tenant is the one who pays the monthly power bill, who really wins? Think about the financial risk here. A landlord might drop hundreds of thousands of dollars on a state-of-the-art system only to see absolutely zero direct return on that investment because it's the tenant seeing their utility costs drop to zero. As you can imagine, this creates a massive structural roadblock. It fundamentally breaks the capitalistic incentive to go green. I mean, why would a property owner ever invest heavily in building efficiency if they don't see a dime of that return, right?
To fix this, we need a master plan. First, we'll unpack the core problem, the split incentive dilemma. Then, we'll look at unlocking the green lease, followed by finding power in the meter. Finally, we'll outline how shared goals lead to shared success, and wrap up with the sustainable bottom line. Think of this agenda as our blueprint for alignment. We're basically building a bridge to connect the seemingly opposing sides of property ownership and tenancy. Real quick, before we get into the weeds, I want to ground our explainer in some incredibly robust source material. The strategies we're discussing today are derived directly from the SASB real estate standards, specifically the guidelines around managing tenant sustainability impacts. These aren't just, feel-good theories. They are rigorous industry-standard accounting frameworks that major institutional investors actually rely on to assess a portfolio's future-proofing. We're going to look at the exact, actionable metrics used by top-tier real estate professionals to solve this problem in the real world. So let's kick things off with Section 1, the split incentive dilemma, and why crucial green building upgrades often stall out before they even begin. A split incentive occurs when the financial interests of building owners and tenants simply do not align regarding sustainability outcomes and capital improvements. And here is why this is such a critical bottleneck. While landlords technically own the physical real estate assets, it's the tenant operations within those assets that actually dominate the environmental impact. Tenants pull the electricity, they generate the daily waste, they run the water, and their habits fundamentally influence the indoor environmental quality of the space. But if the building owner doesn't have a financial mechanism to upgrade the building's underlying efficiency, all that critical environmental progress just stops dead in its tracks. And this brilliantly illustrates the standoff this creates. On one side, you have the landlord's cost. They bear the total upfront burden of expensive resource efficiency capital improvements. On the other side, you have the tenant's benefit. They get to sit back and reap all the ongoing rewards of drastically lower utility bills and much improved indoor air quality. When one side pays and the other side profits, you have a broken, paralyzed system. It's a massive barrier. So the multi-million-dollar question is, how do we turn that barrier into a bridge? Which brings us perfectly to our second agenda item, unlocking the green lease. We have to bridge this gap using structural lease solutions that actually change the rules of the game. The ultimate structural solution here is the cost recovery clause. This is a specific, legally binding clause in a lease agreement that allows a landlord to invest in resource efficiency upgrades, like smart climate control systems or high-performance insulation, and then recover those expenditures directly from the tenants over time. The SASB standard relies on a specific metric for this, IFRE 410A1, tracking the exact percentage of new leases that feature this clause. Investors use this metric to judge how well a real estate portfolio is mitigating climate risk. It's a total game changer for realigning those previously broken financial interests. Let's move to and see how this builds in a real-world scenario. Step 1. The landlord steps up and installs a state-of-the-art HVAC system that slashes the building's baseline energy demand. Step 2, because the building is now operating at peak efficiency, the tenant immediately sees a drop in their monthly utility consumption and starts saving cash. Step 3, The landlord recovers their initial capital costs by passing a calculated portion of those expenditures through to the tenant, usually on an amortized schedule based directly on those projected savings. The beauty of this is the tenant still pays less overall than they did before, the landlord gets their capital back, and the building's carbon footprint shrinks. Everyone wins. Now, structural leases are fantastic, for sure, but they require highly accurate operational data to actually function. That transitions us to Section 3, Power in the Meter. There's an old business adage that is entirely true for real estate sustainability. You can't manage what you don't measure. If a tenant's waste generation or electricity use is simply bundled into a flat rent fee, they have absolutely zero incentive to optimize their operations. They're not going to turn off the lights over the weekend, they won't fix a leaky faucet, and they certainly won't invest in better recycling protocols. Without accurate, individualized data holding them accountable, driving any sort of meaningful tenant behavior change is quite literally impossible. This is exactly why SASB metric IFRE 410.2 is so incredibly critical. This metric tracks the percentage of leasable floor area where tenants are separately metered or submetered for grid electricity and water withdrawals. Moving tenants from unmetered spaces to submetered spaces is a real game changer. Let's talk about human psychology for a second. We generally don't conserve until we personally feel the financial sting of waste. When tenants receive a direct, highly specific bill based on their actual consumption, suddenly, conservation makes immediate financial sense. Direct billing drives conservation because it connects daily habits right to the corporate wallet. But true alignment is about way more than just hard data and utility bills. Let's explore Section 4, Shared Goals, Shared Success, and see how property owners can move beyond tracking numbers to building shared human impacts. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the depth of strategy required by SASB metric IFRE 410A3. Proactive landlords need a concrete strategy for measuring and incentivizing tenant impacts. This means mutually sharing operational data back and forth in real time. It means sitting down and establishing shared consumption and waste generation targets and setting strict sustainability standards for any fit-out work the tenant does. But perhaps most importantly, establishing these shared goals isn't just about saving power. It actively creates a tangibly healthier, better ventilated workspace. By prioritizing long-term indoor environmental quality over just making the absolute cheapest adjustments, the daily experience in the building dramatically improves for everyone. And the really good news here? Landlords don't have to invent these complex strategies from scratch. There are highly respected third-party frameworks ready to go right now. Initiatives like Green Lease Leaders provide plug-and-play templates so you don't need expensive legal teams to invent clauses from the ground up. BOMA International has comprehensive guides for high-performance management, and the U.S. Green Building Council provides a roadmap to integrate LEED standards right into the leasing process. These organizations provide the essential scaffolding to make shared success a practical reality. Which brings us to our final section, the sustainable bottom line. We've talked a lot about how to align these interests, so let's summarize the massive long-term rewards of actually doing it. So the crucial point is that aligning landlord and tenant interests is definitely not just a nice, charitable thing to do for the planet. It's a fundamental driver of financial performance. By implementing cost recovery clauses, submetering infrastructure, and shared performance goals, property owners see immediate decreases in direct operating costs. They drastically slash their risk of facing fines from strict building codes. Plus, incredibly healthy, highly efficient buildings with superior indoor environmental quality drive massive tenant demand. Happy, healthy employees equals satisfied corporate tenants. They stay longer, renew at higher rates, and it all cascades upward, culminating in the ultimate goal, significant long-term asset value appreciation. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder today. Is your lease a barrier or a bridge to sustainability? Whether you're a commercial building owner, a corporate tenant trying to improve your employee workspace, or an investor analyzing portfolio risk, I challenge you to fundamentally reevaluate the contracts that govern your spaces. The tools absolutely exist right now, from cost recovery clauses to operational transparency and submetering, to seamlessly align our financial interests with our environmental responsibilities. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.